Start recording. Hi everybody, welcome to Module 17. In Module 17 we're going to talk about ethics. And ethics is a really important topic to talk about and to become familiar with and to learn about, because most people go through their entire lives and or a lot of people, I don't know if it's most, but certainly some people, maybe a lot of people, maybe most people go through their entire lives and they never really reflect upon ethics and morality, and they never develop their own ethical framework, their own moral framework. And in this video here, you're going to learn what an ethical or moral framework is, and you're going to learn how to develop one. And that's a really great thing to do because it allows you to take a step in your maturation, your psychological, your emotional, even your spiritual maturation. It allows you to take a step in that direction. Because if you don't develop your own moral or ethical framework, and we're going to define those terms and the differences between them, if you do not develop your own moral and ethical framework, then you are just living based upon what other people have told you to do. They've given you rules, they've given you guidelines, they've said you should do this, you shouldn't do that, and you've accepted these edicts, these rules, these guidelines, you've accepted them, and maybe you've accepted them without thinking about them. And the only way, or one of the big steps, let me change that, one of the big steps that you can take in your own personal maturation, your psychological maturation, your emotional maturation, and also maybe even your spiritual maturation, one of the big steps you could take is to learn to define your own morality and your own moral framework, your own ethical framework, and to have your own reasons for why you do and do not do something, right? The decisions you make and the actions you take. Why do you make those decisions? Why do you take those actions? Why do you not make certain decisions? Why do you not take certain actions, right? And so we're all born into certain cultures, and those cultures have certain rules and guidelines with which we ingest, we absorb, we imbibe them. In psychology, that's known as introjection. And so introjection is this idea that you take on, define, right? We'll take a look at what this means here, but it's this idea that you take on a belief without really thinking about it. The unconscious adoption of the ideas or attitudes of others. You introject, right, these beliefs. And to become conscious of this, to become conscious that, these rules and guidelines are constructs of certain cultures, and we're all born into different cultures. And so we're born into a microculture, and the microculture that we're born into would be like our family, just the immediate family with which we reside in wherever we live. And then we have our extended family, and then we have our extended community, right? And so that would be family and friends. And then we have the city, the region, right? The city in which we were born. And then we have the region, the wider region, maybe that'd be the state. And then we have the wider region yet, and that would be your nation. And then we have the wider region yet, and that would be, certain sort of cultural perspectives, right? Are these Western European perspectives? Are they Asian perspectives? Are they Eastern European perspectives? Are they Indian perspectives? Are they Southeastern Asia, right? Are they Latin American perspectives? So there are these wider cultures beyond just the borders. And so all these cultures that we've been born into, they have certain rules and guidelines and ideas and concepts about what it means to be a human, about what it means to be a woman, or what it means to be a man, or what it means to be an adult and to be mature, and what it means to be a teenager, and how people should act, the decisions they should make, and the actions they should take at different places in time. So some cultures, could have ideas which are very antithetical to other cultures, meaning that, the actions, the decisions and actions that somebody would take in a certain situation in one culture would be really different than the decisions and actions that somebody else takes in a different culture. And so it's really interesting to just realize the relativity of those constructs, right? The relativity of those constructs. So those philosophical constructs, which deeply determine our sense of identity and deeply determine the decisions we make and the actions we take, those are all just ideas. They're ideas. And they've been given to us by these different cultures that we've been into. And one more culture I forgot to mention is religious cultures, right? So different religions have different cultures. And so there are all these cultures. We've been born into a multitude of cultures, from our family to our city to our state to our nation to a larger sort of, regional, Latin American, North American, Western European, Eastern European, right? Different regional Indian, right? Different regional Southeast Asian, different regional larger cultures, and then religious cultures, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Catholic, right? All these different religions that are out there. We've been born into all these different cultures, and they've given us all these ideas. They've given us all these ideas about who we should be and what we should do. And so the first step is just to become conscious and to become aware that we've been given ideas about the decisions we should make and the actions we should take and what it means to be a certain type of person and how we should act and behave. We've been given these constructs, these ideas. And so to become free and to become mature is to step beyond all this stuff which you've introjected, and to ask yourself, okay, if I'm to wipe the table clean, if I'm to erase that blackboard and just start from scratch and develop my own moral framework, my own ethical framework, who am I? And what decisions do I want to make, and what actions do I want to take, and why do I want to make those decisions, and why do I want to take those actions and not take other actions? And so that is the first step in kind of gaining this step in maturity, is no longer just doing what you're told, right? Whether it's been told by the larger regions or the nation or the state or the city or the family or the religion, no longer just doing what you're told, but really thinking, for yourself and making your own decisions and actions. And so that's developing your own moral and ethical framework. And we're going to see how to do that in this video. And it's a really significant step in your psychological, emotional, spiritual maturation to realize that you've been given all these concepts, all these ideas about who you should be and what makes you a good person or doesn't make you a good person. It's all defined, right, by these different cultures that you've been born into. And sometimes people can take heinous acts, right, really horrible acts, and that in some systems might be seen as now I'm a great, worthy person. There have been cultures that have existed where they've had heinous acts as part of their rites and rituals, and things which wouldn't jibe with my own moral framework. And when people in those cultures took those acts, made those decisions and took those actions and harmed others in many situations, for them that was they were doing a great thing. And so you have to be truly, to take that step of maturation, you have to make your own decisions and actions and reconcile that with yourself. You have to reconcile that with yourself. So this is the first step in understanding ethics, and we're talking about ethics because in this class you're learning how to use the world's most powerful tool, which could also be said you're learning to use the world's most powerful weapon, because a weapon's a tool, and technology can definitely be used as a weapon, and some people absolutely use it as a weapon. And so you are learning how to use the world's most powerful tool. So it's incumbent upon me as your instructor to make sure that you have thought a little bit about ethics and morality. Because if you were to go to a shooting range, a gun range, and to learn how to use a handgun, the tool which is a handgun, which could be used for great benefit and great harm, right? If you were to go learn how to use a tool which is a handgun, a handgun instructor that was worth its salt, right? A good handgun instructor would not only teach you how to use the tool, they would also teach you when to use the tool and when not to use the tool. And so that's why we're having this conversation on ethics, because like handguns, computers and technology, they are very powerful tools, and you have to know when to use them, how to use them, and when not to use them, when to put them away. And all of this is the theory. It's harder in application. And so sometimes even for myself, I'm like, okay, I gotta exercise intense self-control to not look at my phone when I'm driving, or to not try to dial somebody when I'm driving. I just have to be stop, put it away, right? And so that's why we're learning about ethics, because our decisions and our actions will determine the quality of our life. Our decisions and actions will determine the quality of our life. And so here's a saying that I've kind of refined and rephrased into my own terminology. But I learned this from one of my teachers. And the saying is that you will live and die, be happy or unhappy, and be successful or unsuccessful based upon your own choices and actions. You will live and die, be happy or unhappy, be successful or unsuccessful based upon your own choices and actions. That's super powerful. You will live or die, be happy or unhappy, be successful or unsuccessful based upon your own choices and actions. So that's a really profound, hold on one second. That's a really profound sense of self-efficacy, to really embrace that. And it's also really embracing an internal locus of control, that you are the one who's responsible for your life, right? You're in the driver's seat of your life. And that's like part of this step in psychological maturation and emotional maturation and even spiritual maturation, is that, you know what? You can't control everything, but your life is your responsibility. It's no longer having the victim mentality, no longer having the victim mentality, but it's this real mature mentality that I'm responsible for my life. And my decisions and my actions will determine my happiness, will determine my success or failure, and will also determine, whether I live or die, and how long I live for, how soon I die, right? Because you make decisions every day which are influencing those outcomes. Are you getting your exercise? Are you getting your sleep? Do you have good nutrition? And if you don't do those three things right there, that's what I think of as the holy triumvirate. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Triumvirate. Define, something like that. Let's hear how to say it. Triumvirate. In ancient Rome, a group of three men holding power, in particular, the unofficial coalition of Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. A coalition of formed... All right. Yes, that's right.
Triumvirate.
Cool. Yep. And so that, your sleep, your exercise, and your nutrition, they have a huge impact on your health and your emotions, your feelings, like how you feel, and your longevity. And so you're going to live and die, succeed or fail, be happy or unhappy based upon your choices and actions. And sometimes you have to do the harder thing in the short term so you can have the better thing in the long term, right? And so the opposite of that would be to do the easier thing in the short term and to have the harder thing in the long term. So the easier thing would just be maybe sit on the couch, not expend the energy to exercise, not expend the energy to make good homemade food and eat well, but to eat junk, sit on the couch, right? Short term, easy, and long term, hard. So you are responsible for your life. Big takeaway right there. All right, hold on. So to develop your own moral framework, you have to have some basis for the decisions you make. And your basis is a philosophical perspective. And it's a philosophical perspective, that you have arrived at, that it forms the foundation for your moral framework. So this is developing your own moral framework, your own ethical framework. And the basis for your decision making, you have to think to yourself. I can't do it for you. I will tell you what I arrived at, but you have to think for yourself. Like, what is the basis? What is the foundation for all of my decision making and for all of my actions? And when I looked at that, the thing that I came up with is my own personal self-interest. That's the basis. That's the basis for all of my decision making, all of my actions. It's my own personal self-interest, okay? That's the first thing. That's the foundation, my own personal self-interest. And part of that is sort of a Taoist. Taoism is very much aligning with nature. Taoism is a belief system, an Eastern belief system, which is about, aligning with the natural order of things. So part of the basis of this foundation that I arrived at, which is my own personal self-interest, is that that's nature. Like, we have all been created here in nature as autonomous beings who are looking out for their own self-interests. Nobody else is looking out for Todd McLeod's interests more than Todd McLeod that I'm aware of in this material plane, this material existence, right? Maybe there's a spiritual realm where I have spiritual beings, spiritual ancestors, as the Native Americans might have believed. looking out for me, and I believe that is actually also the case. But in this material realm, like just like I am responsible for my life, I'll live and die, succeed and fail, be happy or unhappy based upon my decisions and actions. So too, right? Like I'm the one looking out for my life. I'm responsible for my life. I'm looking out for my life. Nobody else is looking out for my life more. I can't count on my mom or my dad. I can't count on my wife or my kids to look out for me more than I'm going to look out for me. When I'm crossing the street, just at a really practical level, I'm looking out for me, right? When I'm like making my snack decisions, roasted almonds from Costco, I'm making that decision. I'm looking out for me. I'm making that choice. I can't rely on somebody else, my parents, no God, no government, no belief system, right? No culture, no nation, right? No family system. I can't rely upon somebody else to be like, now Todd, you probably don't want to eat 12 cupcakes. I have to make that decision. I have to look out for my own personal self-interest. That's the foundation, okay? And that's the way we're made. We're independent beings operating in this world, looking out for ourselves, and then that's the foundation. That can sound a little bit self-centered. That can sound a little bit, narcissistic, egocentric, but it's also, for me, it's the truth. You have to decide if it's the truth for you. For me, that's the truth. Okay, like here it is. Right, this is the foundation. I'm looking out for me. I'm looking out for my, and that's how I see everybody else in the world is looking out for themselves. All right, we're gonna build on that. So here's the next thing. If I'm building on that, if I'm looking out for me, one of the things that I've learned, so this is layer 2, so layer 1, I'm building my moral framework, my ethical framework, but layer 1 is I'm looking out for my own personal interests. Layer 2, it's in my best interest to look out for others. Okay? That's layer 2. Layer 1, I'm looking out for me. Layer 2, one of the best things I could do for me is do things for others. Okay? I'm looking out for me, layer 1. Layer 2, one of the best things I could do for me is to look out for others. Okay? Why? Why is that? Because we're social creatures. Again, this is Taoist perspective. We're social creatures. We need other people. And this has been researched and studied, and I've seen that research, and I'm going to share it with you here in a second. But the quality of our lives depends upon the quality of our relationships. And if you do not have good relationships, you will not have a good life. Okay? We are social creatures. So again, very aligned with nature, aligned with who we are, aligned with the natural order of things, aligned with the way things work, right? We're all looking out for ourselves, and one of the best things we can do for ourselves is to do stuff for others, to think of others, to have great relationships with other people, because the quality of our life will depend upon the quality of our relationships. So that's both true at an emotional level and a psychological level. You're going to do better emotionally and psychologically if you have good intimate relationships with a significant other and you have family. And that's also true at a business level. Like, you will succeed or fail in the world depending upon whether or not people like you and whether or not you can get along with people. And the more people like you, the easier it's going to be for you to succeed. Right? If people love you, like, they will just watch you on YouTube and watch you doing stuff. Like, if you're like really likable, there's some people that are, Mr. Beast, right? He's got a very amiable personality, gets along with people well. I don't know, from the way the YouTube videos work, and from the way the YouTube videos make him look, and from all that, it's like, wow, okay, right? He's making a living by just sharing who he is with others. It's very relational. So we need to look out for our own personal interests, and part of looking out for our own personal interests is looking out for the interests of others. And you can watch this TED Talk. So we'll go to YouTube. And here, this TED Talk is amazing. You absolutely should watch it. And this TED Talk is the Harvard Study of Adult Development. Okay? And so this is the longest running study in the history of humanity. It's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And we're just going to cancel YouTube because my computer can't handle it. This is an old computer. The Harvard Study of Adult Development. TED, come Study of Adult Development TED Talk. There we go. So you want to search for this TED Talk. And what makes a good life? Lessons from the longest running study on happiness. It's right here, okay? What makes a good life? So just look for that. Robert Waldinger. It's 13 minutes long. And what you're going to learn in that video when you watch it is that the quality of your life depends upon the quality of your relationships. I really encourage you to watch this video. Because now with these two pieces, you have the foundation for building your own moral framework, okay? Your own ethical framework. And that is, I'm looking out for me, and one of the best things I could do for me is to look out for others, okay? And to have relationships with others. And now with that, you are in a really strong place for, here's the criteria that I use, the foundation for all my decisions and actions. Like, you're in an amazing place. You developed your own moral and ethical framework. So there's a Dalai Lama quote. The Dalai Lama is a spiritual leader of the Buddhist religion. And he's also the king or whatever, the ruler of Tibet. And Tibet was invaded by China, and now he's living in exile. Tibet, the country, is taken over by China. And somebody asked the Dalai Lama a question one time, and you do so much for other people. They asked him, you do so much for other people. Why do you do so much for other people? He says, I don't do it for anybody else other than myself. That was his answer. Because when he does stuff for other people, he's actually doing it for himself, right? Like, that's how deep his perspective has with this framework, this foundation. And by the way, I'm just assuming he has this framework foundation. This is my interpretation of the framework and foundation. Look out for myself. Part of looking out for myself is looking out for others, right? And but the Dalai Lama reflected a very similar perspective when he shared that quote. When he does stuff for others, he's doing it for himself. Because that really encapsulates this idea, that, it's in our own best interest to think of the interests of others. And so with that, we have a real pro-social orientation. The word I'm saying there is pro-social, right? And so pro-social means you're making decisions and taking actions which have a positive social benefit to others and society as a whole. You can see the definition there. But with that foundation, it really empowers you to be a good person. And good in the sense of you're building good relationships with people. And you're not doing it because some God or government told you to do it. You're doing it because you know now it's in your own best interest. And that is a really powerful place to come from. It's a motivating place. If you're doing something because it's some edict or some dictum that's been handed down to you from on high, from the government or from some God or from some culture, you must be this way, don't sin. That can be kind of hard. Right? Like, oh, I'm not supposed to, or I can't take for myself because I'm going to go to hell. Right? Like, that's all actually an allegory, going to hell. Maybe it's real. I don't know. But it's also an allegory for, like, there's going to be bad stuff that happens to you if you don't align with pro-social behavior. And, but that's like coming from a place of being afraid of punishment, as opposed to coming from a place of, like, knowing that this is in your own best interest and you are now empowered. Right? Because, like, why would you want to harm yourself? Why would you want to do something that harms yourself? And if you know that if you're thinking of others, that's actually going to be you thinking of you thinking of yourself. And when you do stuff for others, you're actually doing stuff for yourself. And when you help others, you're actually helping yourself. When you know that, when you take care of others, you're taking care of yourself. When you know that empowers you to more easily do it. All right, so that's the framework right there, and that's the whole framework. And so some stories to illustrate, how this is applied in action. Very basic level, like I'm going to treat people right, because if I don't treat people right, then I'm not thinking of others. I'm not building good relationships, and I need good relationships because the quality of my life is going to depend upon the quality of my relationships. And so just yesterday, I was at Home Depot, and I needed to buy 10 feet of galvanized steel pipe, 1 inch wide. And I went up to the checkout, and there's a gal at the checkout place, and she's like, oh, there's no barcode on this pipe. What is it? I'm like, 10 feet, 1 inch, galvanized steel, should be about $35, because that's the price I saw. And she, typed something in. She goes, oh, here, it's $24. And I look at the screen, I'm like, nope. That's 10 feet half-inch galvanized steel. I have 10 feet 1-inch galvanized steel. It should be about $35. She's like, oh, here it is, $35, right? And so in that moment, I had an ethical dilemma. Like, do I take that $10 for myself, or am I somebody who's looking out for the interests of others? Knowing that when I look out for the interests of others, I'm looking out for the interests of myself, I did the right thing. And in doing the right thing, I can now share that story with other people, right? And I can affirm to others, and I know in myself, I'm going to treat people right. 100%, right? Like 100%, like, yeah, I'm going to be straight. I'm going to not take advantage of people. Obviously in life, sometimes there's gray zones, there's negotiation areas, but when it's clear cut, like this is the price, that's what you're asking. Okay, I know what to do. It could be hard. It could be easy to do the easy thing in the short term. It could be easy to sit on your couch and eat potato chips and watch TV. But if you do that, it's going to ruin your life if you do it all the time. Right? And so sometimes you have to do the hard thing in the short term so that in the long term you get the better thing. You got to exercise. You got to eat right. You got to get your sleep. And in the long term, you're going to get the better thing. And you got to not take advantage of people. You got to treat people squarely. You got to have that integrity. And then people will know, okay, Todd's a reliable guy. I could count on him. I could trust him. And so there's all kinds of incidents. Another time I was at Costco and I bought a case of wine. My wife likes wine. I'm not a fan. So I got a case of wine. And when I got out to my car, I looked at the receipt, or when I got home, I think when I got home, I looked at the receipt, and they charged me for one bottle. Not 12 bottles, one bottle, right? Which means that I owed them, $140. 12 bottles times $15 a bottle. I went back to Costco, and I said, hey, you guys mischarged me. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, let me see the receipt. And I'm like, you only charged me for one bottle of wine. I need to pay you for 12. And I paid for those other 11 bottles of wine, right? And so, like, man of integrity, person of integrity, like trustworthy, reliable, looking out for others, fair dealing, so all of this is from that moral framework. I'm looking out for my own personal self-interest, and the best thing I could do to look out for my own personal self-interest is to look out for the interests of others and treat people fair, right? So this is the moral framework. And so, that's the theory, and then the application can be harder because that's where you have to apply it. But do you want to be an individual that is trustworthy and reliable? And do you want to deal with people who are trustworthy and reliable? Like, do you want to deal with people who are honest and tactful and gracious? So you have to balance honesty with tactfulness and graciousness. You don't want to be like bluntly honest with everybody and hurt their feelings and share your subjective perspectives, or sometimes they're objective, right? But you have to balance with honesty. But do you want to have relationships with people who are trustworthy, reliable, and honest? Well, if you want to have relationships with people who are trustworthy, reliable, and honest, guess what you got to be? And trust is the foundation. Trust is the foundation of relationships, because it's really about, hey, we trust each other. And we have each other's backs. Now, trust is also balanced with prudence and just good business practices, right? So when you're doing business and things like that, there's good business practices. There's guidelines to help, prevent people from making the wrong decisions and taking the wrong action. So you have to include all of that also. So this is a little bit about morality and ethics, and the way it could apply to computers is that you'll have opportunities when you're doing things online to, you'll be working at businesses, you'll be privy to private information. You have to protect that information. You have to understand the guidelines within that organization and adhere to them. And if there's something that doesn't jive with your own moral and ethical framework, you need to have that conversation and say, look, I can't do those things. And you have to protect yourself from people who aren't scrupulous and who don't have good morals and good ethics, or pro-social morals and pro-social ethics. And so that's like a skill that you need to take with you into the world so that you can operate in the world effectively and build a good life. And to build a good life, you need to build good relationships. So trust is really important, and ethics and morality are really important to having great relationships in your life. So that's a bit about morality and ethics, and I have this entire presentation here, and we'll just glance at it briefly. Let me see what time it is. We got like 5 minutes. So why care about morality and ethics, right? It's in your best interest to care about morality and ethics. It could, good decisions and good actions will keep you out of jail. It'll also, aligns with your nature. We're social creatures, and and it also increases your immediate happiness when you're doing the right thing, because our nature is social, and so when we do things which are pro-social, it makes us happier. It's going to increase your success in life to be somebody who's trustworthy and reliable, like, probabilistically, and it's going to give you a more meaningful life because you'll belong to people. And also, what that Harvard study of adult development shows is that you'll live longer when you have good relationships. And so some tools, like, the framework we discussed is the main tool, but here are just some of the kind of ideas that arise from that tool. Like, one of them is, don't take that which isn't freely given. So, the bottles of wine weren't freely given to me. And, if she was going to charge me less for that pipe yesterday, that wasn't being freely given to me. Like, let me give you a gift. It would be me kind of taking something that wasn't mine. You could delay an action if you need to think about it. Like, you could just be like, okay, I need to think about this. And you could delay an action. You could talk with others before you make a decision, like, hey, I'm kind of conflicted about this, and talk with people that you respect. If you kind of are feeling yourself torn, you could use this test of, what if everyone knew this action I was going to take? How would that affect? Would I be embarrassed if everybody knew this action I was going to take? There's the golden rule: treat others like you want to be treated. And then finally, we're human. Right? So have compassion for yourself and others, and forgive yourself and others. Right? We all come with a lot of conditioning from these cultures that we've been raised in. And so you are not your fault. You come out of a certain environment. You were born with a certain nature, and then you also received certain nurturing. So your nature and your nurture, you're not your fault, but you're going to be held accountable for your decisions and your actions. So you're not your fault, and you'll be held accountable for your decisions and actions. So you need to, think about, have compassion and forgiveness for yourself for any times that you've fallen short, or any times you fall short in the future. Forgive yourself, have compassion, and also for other people. But also know that you really need to try. You really need to try. Like, you're responsible for your life. And you will be held accountable for your decisions and actions. Right? It comes back to you, either in the world or just even in your own mind and how you feel about yourself. So that's a bit about, the ethics and morality. All right, so I think we've said enough here about ethics and morality. I'm just kind of looking through this whole list of stuff here. Yeah, one of the little exercises is this grocery cart, right? Like, are you pushing your grocery cart into the stall, or are you leaving it out in the middle of the parking lot for somebody else to pick up, right? Like, are you kind of picking up after yourself in life, or expecting other people to pick up after you? That's another kind of good thing to think about. So that's a bit about morality and ethics. I think the last thing we'll do here is we'll just ask ChatGPT, chat here, and we'll say, what is the difference? Please define morality and, all right, come on. My computer's struggling. Please define morality and ethics, and explain the difference between them, if any. Morality refers to a set of principles or rules concerning right and wrong behavior. These principles are often derived from societal norms, cultural practices, religious beliefs, or individual conscience. Morality focuses on how individuals should act in specific situations based on what is considered good or just. Ethics is a systematic study of morality. It's a branch of philosophy that examines and rationalizes moral principles to determine how they apply to various situations. Ethics provide a framework for evaluating moral dilemmas and guiding behavior, often in more universal professional contexts. So, the difference between morality and ethics: morality is more personal and societal. Ethics is broader and more systematic. analyze, justify, and critique moral principles. So that's pretty cool. So that's a little bit about morality and ethics. Is the what of right and wrong, is morality shaped by the social norms, and ethics is the why, providing the tools to analyze and justify those moral principles. Kind of cool. All right, I hope this video finds you well. Keep going with school. You're doing great. The more you go to school, it's a really good decision. Go to school. The more you go to school, the more you increase your education, the more skillful you become. The more skillful you become, the better you're going to do in life. So keep doing it. I will see you next time.